I'm Samantha, 28. Sitting in my cozy living room now, surrounded by the warm glow of the lamps, I can't help but cast my mind back to that fateful Thanksgiving evening. The room was filled with an awkward silence, broken only by the ticking of the old clock on the mantel, a clock that had been in my family for generations. My mother, Helen, had just uttered words that felt like a sledgehammer to my heart. Honestly, Samantha, you can decorate this place and cook fancy meals, but you'll always be a burden to this family. We all know it. The shock of her words hung in the air like a thick fog. I could feel the blood drain from my face as I stared at her in disbelief. My boyfriend, Ethan, who had been sitting beside me, stopped mid-sip, his coffee cup frozen halfway to his lips. His eyes widened in a mix of shock and anger. I looked around the room, hoping to find some support, some glimmer of understanding. But my uncle, Victor, was suddenly engrossed in his phone, pretending to be busy. My aunt, Grace, was examining her fingernails as if they held the secrets of the universe. And my cousin Lily stared at her lap, avoiding eye contact with anyone. As I sat there, the weight of years of pent-up emotions came crashing down on me. I remembered the countless times I had tried to win their approval, the sacrifices I had made, and the love I had never received in return. But in that moment, something inside me snapped. I took a deep breath, and with a voice that was surprisingly steady, I began to speak. It all started when I was a little girl. My father, Henry, was the light of our family. He had a way of making even the darkest days seem bright. He would come home from work, tired but always with a smile on his face, and he'd scoop me up in his arms, spinning me around until I was dizzy with laughter. But when I was 12, he passed away suddenly. It was like a black cloud had descended on our lives. My mother, Helen, who had always been a bit strict, became even more so. She took on 2 jobs to make ends meet, and I could see the stress eating away at her. The lines on her face deepened, and her once bright eyes grew dull. Slowly, her stress turned into resentment, and unfortunately, I became the target of it. Every time I needed money for school fees or supplies, she would sigh heavily and mutter about how expensive I was to raise. "Other kids don't cost their parents this much," she'd say. "If I didn't have to worry about you, maybe I could finally relax." When I got sick and needed medicine, she'd look at the bill and shake her head in despair. But I was determined to prove myself. I threw myself into my studies, spending countless nights poring over books and working on projects. I earned a full scholarship to State University for graphic design. I thought that finally, she'd be proud of me. But when I told her the news, she just shrugged and said, "You're just lucky to get free school." We couldn't afford to pay for it anyway. College was my escape. I focused on building my skills, taking on internships that paid nothing but gave me valuable experience. I graduated with honors, but when I walked across the stage, my mother wasn't there. She said she had to work. After graduation, I struggled to find a job in the competitive graphic design field. I took on freelance projects and part-time retail jobs, slowly building up my portfolio. Every time I visited home, my mother would make snide comments about how my expensive education wasn't paying off. "When are you going to get a real job?" she'd ask. But I didn't give up. Last year, I landed a position at a prestigious advertising agency downtown. 6 months later, I was promoted to senior graphic designer. I finally had a good salary and I moved into a beautiful apartment. I felt like I had finally made it. I decided to host Thanksgiving dinner to show my family, especially my mother, that all my hard work had paid off. I spent weeks planning the perfect menu, researching recipes, and buying the finest ingredients. I arranged fresh flowers around the apartment and set the table with my grandmother's antique china, a set that I had saved up for years to buy back from an estate sale. The day before Thanksgiving, as I put the finishing touches on the preparations, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Ethan, who had been with me for 8 months, noticed my nervousness. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" he asked gently. "Your family has never really appreciated your efforts before." But I was determined. "This time will be different," I said. "They'll see how much I've achieved." Thanksgiving morning arrived, and the crisp autumn air filled my apartment with a sense of anticipation. I woke up early to start the turkey and began the elaborate cooking process. Ethan arrived around 9 a.m. to help. I could see the concern in his eyes as he watched me frantically checking and re-checking every detail. The first to arrive were Uncle Victor and Aunt Grace. They walked into my apartment with an air of superiority, looking around as if they were judging a museum exhibit. Uncle Victor immediately started evaluating my living space. "The square footage isn't very impressive," he said, "and I'm not sure this neighborhood is as safe as it looks." Aunt Grace was more subtle. "How brave of you to choose such bold colors," she said with a sweet smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It's so nice that you're comfortable with minimalism." When my mother arrived with Lily and her family, the real ordeal began. My mother walked through the apartment, pointing out things to Lily. "Look at how much Samantha spent on this couch," she said, running her hand over the fabric. "Must be nice to have money to throw around like that." When Lily complimented my flower arrangements, my mother quickly redirected the attention. "Lily always makes her own centerpieces. It's so much more personal." Lily's brother, Max, stumbled in about an hour later, clearly already drunk. He plopped himself down on my expensive couch, putting his dirty shoes up on the cushions. When I asked him to remove his shoes, my mother jumped to his defense. "You're being too precious about your furniture. Families should feel comfortable in each other's homes." As we sat down for dinner, the atmosphere was tense. The turkey was perfectly cooked, the sides were delicious, and the presentation was restaurant quality. But instead of acknowledging my efforts, the conversation quickly turned to comparisons. My mother spent 10 minutes describing how wonderful Lily's Thanksgiving had been the previous year. "It was so homey and comfortable," she said. "Not like this fancy approach." Uncle Victor chimed in with stories about the expensive restaurants he had been to, making it clear that my food was just adequate. The conversation then shifted to careers. Uncle Victor boasted about his latest real estate developments, throwing around numbers and talking about million-dollar deals as if they were everyday occurrences. Then, the spotlight turned to Lily. My mother's voice filled with warmth as she praised Lily's career as a kindergarten teacher. "Teaching is such noble work. Lily is shaping young minds, making a real difference in the world." The implication was clear. My work in advertising didn't matter. I tried to redirect the conversation by sharing news about my recent promotion and salary increase. "I'm now managing a team of junior designers," I said proudly. But my mother dismissed my achievement. "It's easy to get promoted when you're young and don't have real responsibilities. Wait until you have a mortgage and children and see how far that career gets you." Aunt Grace added her 2 cents. "In my day, we understood that work was about service, not personal fulfillment or big paychecks." The conversation then moved to family financial responsibilities. Uncle Victor talked about how important it was for successful family members to help those who were struggling. Lily shared stories about helping her in-laws and contributing to family emergencies. My mother then looked directly at me. "It's funny how family responsibility works. Some people understand that success means helping others, and some people think success means buying expensive furniture and showing off." I felt my cheeks flush with anger, but I tried to stay calm. I explained that I had been helping family members financially for years. "I've been sending Mom money regularly since I got my first decent paying job. I covered Max's car payments twice when he was out of work, and I contributed to Uncle Victor's business when he needed a short-term loan." But instead of acknowledging my contributions, the family closed ranks against me. Max, who was increasingly drunk and belligerent, started making snide comments. "People who live in fancy apartments shouldn't lecture others about family responsibility." Uncle Victor questioned the significance of my financial help. I could see Ethan struggling to hold back his anger as he watched them attack me. It was then that my mother delivered the final blow. And that's when I found the courage to stand up for myself. I told them all about the sacrifices I had made, the money I had given, and the love I had never received in return. "I'm done apologizing for my success," I said firmly. "I'm done trying to make myself smaller, so you can feel bigger." The family was shocked by my outburst. My mother tried to minimize what she had said, but I wouldn't let her. Calling your daughter a burden in front of the entire family isn't helpful feedback. It's cruelty, I said. Uncle Victor tried to smooth things over, saying that families sometimes say things they don't mean, but I wasn't buying it. Lily finally spoke up, her voice small and uncertain. I think maybe we all got carried away tonight. You know we care about you. But I asked her directly if she thought my mother's comment was acceptable, and she couldn't answer. Ethan also spoke up, his voice filled with anger. I've been sitting here all evening watching you tear down everything Samantha has accomplished. This isn't a family dinner, it's bullying. My mother turned on him, saying he didn't understand our family dynamics. But Ethan stood his ground. There's a difference between honesty and cruelty, and what happened here tonight was cruelty. After that, I set some boundaries. I told them that I would no longer attend family gatherings where I was treated like a punching bag. I would no longer provide financial support to family members who showed me no respect. And I would no longer apologize for my success. The evening ended with an awkward departure. They gathered their coats and purses in silence and left without a word. Ethan and I sat there, surrounded by the remnants of the dinner. The turkey was barely touched, the expensive wine was mostly undrunk, and the homemade desserts sat abandoned on the counter. But instead of feeling devastated, I felt a sense of peace. For the first time in my adult life, I had stood up for myself. In the days and weeks that followed, my family tried to reach out to me. Max called, slurring his words and threatening to tell everyone what a terrible person I was. Aunt Grace sent a long text message, telling me how disappointed she was in my behavior and how I should apologize. Uncle Victor called to lecture me about burning bridges. Lily called, crying, saying she wanted to fix things, but she couldn't bring herself to fully support me. My mother, on the other hand, sent a series of text messages blaming me for ruining Thanksgiving and threatening to cut me out of her life if I didn't apologize. But I didn't respond. I focused on my own life, on my career, and on the relationships that truly mattered. I started therapy, which helped me understand that my worth wasn't determined by my family's opinion of me. I began to build healthier relationships with my friends and colleagues. At work, I became more confident and creative. My supervisor noticed the change and complimented me on my performance. My relationships with my friends deepened, and I finally felt like I had found my real family. Looking back on that Thanksgiving evening, I realized it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. It taught me that sometimes the most important word you can say is no. No to mistreatment, no to manipulation, and no to relationships that make you feel small. I've learned that real family is about lifting each other up, celebrating each other's successes, and choosing each other's well, being over their own convenience. And I'm grateful for the courage I found that night to choose myself.